G'day YouTube, Warbles on all lot here. Never let it be said that on this channel we don't tackle the big questions. To wit, for example, what's better? A styrofoam chuck glider, like for example this one, of two at least, which I bought from a arty, farty, crafty style of a shop called Lincraft in Armidale, because I thought, well, $5 each. In the packet, they seem to be pretty well made, so I figured why not buy several of them. I actually bought 5 spares and gave them away to people who had kids to play with, and I'd given them away before I got so far as to open up one of them and discover that the acrylic paint had all gone hard. So the people in possession of one kid to whom I'd given a glider, I actually followed up with a packet of paint tubes, and the other people who had 4 gliders, I sort of got a message to them that don't try to use that paint, you'll have to get your own poster paint or something. So there is that, and we'll get into painting these things later on. The purpose of today's exercise, if it'll occur, is to see what works best. A styrofoam chuck glider or a paper aeroplane. A dart, perhaps, or a modified dart, or even the rare super modified dart. What actually flies better with an old-fashioned flying paint bomb as a comparison? As I said, what a question. The grand plan was to have had absolutely perfectly still air in which to conduct the test, rather than still air chopped up by gusts rushing in to fill the departing space every time a thermal bubble cooks off and rises up from the valley floor and goes past the hilltop that we're sitting on. So, although conditions now won't be quite as perfect as they were, or close to perfect as they were this morning, let's get serious. Most people flying most paper aeroplanes don't actually have perfect still air weather conditions. They've got something approximating a good day for flying paper aeroplanes. So let's see. $5 for the styrofoam chuck glider, and I think $5, maybe as much as $10 for 1,000 sheets of paper. So if we say that this cost $5 and then another $5 to buy the tubes of paint to actually paint it, so $10 for the chuck glider, and let's say you use the boutique copying paper at $10 for 1,000 sheets, then what we're looking at is 1,000 paper aeroplanes, and if you make the dart style, you also get 1,000 helicopters for the same $10, but you'll get one styrofoam chuck glider. So it would have to have pretty sparkling performance to be considered better than a paper aeroplane. That's the starting parameters of the experiment. Let's see how we go. Seven yards, 6 seconds. Sadly, turned into the wind. Oh, that flight didn't go far, did it? This feels calm. Didn't work that way. "16 paces. "18 paces downhill, 19 paces back uphill. Landing point 1.5 meters below the takeoff point. So maybe 8.5 to 1 glide angle lift drag ratio, perhaps, if you sort of take away the fact that this thing was flying into the wind and it was in ridge lift and all the rest of it. But yeah, kind of, sort of, something like that. 12 to 1 at most, 8 to 1 at worst, my guess. "14 metres across the slope, landing maybe 1.5 metres below that, so yeah, almost 10 to 1. Well, the track over the ground was 16 metres for that one. "18-metre ground track. "14 metres straight line distance from the standard dart. I'm going to try the modified dart with the bigger wingspan, and it'll probably want to fly slower. So this is not actually the day for it. Wherever you go, pull out an aeroplane, the sheeple will come. First rule of barnstorming, actually. "21 metres ground track as a result of the greater wing area, greater span, better lift drag ratio. That was better. 25 metres walked ground track, 1.5 metres altitude loss. What are we looking at? 15, 16 to 1 lift drag ratio. So we go for the radically modified dart. All wing, bugger all side area. Looks about like that when it's airborne, if we can get it to fly in this wind. Now we'll give it the cambered leading edge and reflexed trailing edge, and see if that makes it fly a bit more betterer. Kind of like the ultimate in model aeroplane aerodynamicals. Trouble with this thing is it hates the slightest amount of wind. It really does demand dead calm. And even then, it turns around and comes back. So I think it's probably fair to say that the extreme sailplane version of the dart is too strong and too radical a modification. For practical purposes, you can get away with the modified dart, but the radically modified dart, not so good. Because the big wing doesn't always fly better. Look at them go. Finally it's down. So that was 65 metres for the modified dart. Down to there where it landed. And 45 metres for the standard dart over to where it landed. Yeah, about there. Whereas, whoopsie, the radically modified dart, it turned around and got blown back up the hill. After a ground track of 25 metres and a height loss of maybe half a metre perhaps, you could even say it pretty well maintained altitude because it went backwards up the hill and it was in ridge lift and yada yada yada. And then we have the flying water bomb or paint bomb, depending on how naughty you were as a kid, special. 11 metres out, 2 metres down, 5.5 to 1 glide ratio lift drag. "26 metres ground track, went up half a metre, so that was an actual slope soaring flight. Yeah, well, that's more better. Okay, 42 metres for 3, which I make 14 to 1 glide ratio / lift drag. And that time we had swallows dogfighting. That time it was 35 metres ground track for about 2 metres down. So that time it was 17.5. Yeah, maybe, yeah, 17.5 one side, 14 the other side. 15.5 to 1 lift drag. That's pretty good for a truck glider. So it turns out that in performance terms, the modified dart flies about as well as a $5 styrofoam truck glider, which costs 1,000 times more, $10. Versus 100 for $1. You'd want to get a bloody lot of enjoyment out of that truck glider to be equal to the amount of enjoyment you get out of 1,000 paper aeroplanes.